Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Locate's recording here and broadcast of our webinar for the Retail Index. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we appreciate you taking the time out to be online with us today. We have a number of panelists who are going to be talking through our most recent piece of research of the Retail Index. And we're going to explain a little bit about what the index is, how we've come to this, and what the parameters have been in order for us to be able to score and benchmark individual retailers against one another to be able to produce the index. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself. My name is Chris Britton. I'm the head of marketing for Europe for Locate. Locate is a GBG solution. We're part of the GBG family, and we commissioned this piece of research in order to ensure that we're getting closer to our customers, and it's a great piece of content for us to be able to support the retail industry as a whole. I'm going to pass you over to Matthew. If Matthew, you can give us a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Chris. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. My name is Matthew Furno. I'm with Locate. Around 22 years of experience in the location technology market, working with Locate for the last 7 years. So I serve as Global Commercial Director and Executive Sponsor for this piece of research.
Fantastic, thank you. And Robert, can you give a brief introduction as well, please?
Sure. Yes, so hello, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Robert Gregory. I'm a research director for Edge by Central. And basically, we all know that consumers and how they engage with brands and retailers is changing at a dramatic pace. And it's really my role at Edge to help companies navigate the digital landscape. And it was really our pleasure to partner with Locate and Retail Week on this second internationalization index.
Fantastic, thank you, Robert. And Ian, would you like to give an introduction as well?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone who's listening in. Yeah, I'm chairman of the World Retail Congress, which launched back in 2007. But prior to that, for many years, I've been involved in the retail sector as a retail journalist. Originally, I was part of the launch team of Retail Week way back some years ago now, and then became publisher, and then built the proposition that became the World Retail Congress. So I guess over the many years I've been observing retail, seen many changes, none more so than what we're seeing today right around the world, which is what the World Retail Congress captures. And this is again, as Robert said, this is the second year that I've been involved with Locate, and this new second year for this important research. So delighted to be here.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you. So we're going to dive right in and give you an explanation as to how the Retail Index has come about. So what we've looked to do here is benchmark and pitch each individual retailer against one another for their ability to be able to serve an international market through borderless commerce. So the key factors for us here are to be able to see how accessible their products, services are from individual retailers within markets overseas. So we ideally understand that individuals and businesses are specific businesses are based in certain countries. So for example, we may have a business which is predominantly based in the UK. They also then have the opportunity to start trading overseas. So we're looking at how friction-free that journey is for the consumer. And we're also looking here to score how accessible they make their products or services to their target market. So throughout the course of these slides, you'll be able to get a deep dive as to what parameters we've scored each individual retailer against, and gain an understanding of which retailers are really at the top of their game, and what we can learn from those retailers in order to share best practice among everyone on the call. So for here, we're going to go straight over to Robert. Robert, you're going to kick us off and give an introduction into the scoring process on the International Retail Index.
Yeah, that's right. So before we actually have a look at the actual ranking, let me just explain how it was created and how the retailers were scored in a bit more detail. And I think we recognise that the rise of e-commerce and the influence of digital has really rewritten the rules of international expansion. So in the past, if we were to do a similar type of ranking, it would be traditionally dominated by the physical footprint of the stores and the markets that they operated in. So the likes of Walmart, Carrefour and Tesco would obviously score highly. And basically, globalization would have taken years of carefully crafted store openings in strategic locations. But the rise of e-commerce and the influence of digitalization on businesses means that these rules have changed. And now even relatively small or early stage retailers can reach a global audience much more quickly and with lower investment than ever before. So taking this into account, we analysed 30 curated retailers, which were a mix of the largest global retailers, sector leaders, and smaller digitally native players. And we did this across a range of criteria, scoring them on their ability to reach global consumers through physical and also digital means, plus their adoption of digital capabilities. So this includes, as you can see on the left-hand side there, global metrics such as the size and share of international sales, how many markets they operated in, how many markets do they deliver to internationally, and then a range of digital capabilities, as you can see on the right-hand side there, such as payment options, the ability to make it easier for international shoppers through currency and language options, fulfillment speeds as well, as we'll see later. And to reflect the change in landscapes and priorities, we have incorporated some new metrics and measures into this year's index, such as the presence on voice platforms and the importance of social media as well. So if we move on to the next slide and actually have a look at the top 30 ranking. So there we go, and you can see there in first place we have Amazon, the same position of last year, and we'll have a look in the following slides in more detail about why Amazon came out top. But you can see there, I'll just give you a moment to scan further down the list, but you can see other pure play operators, so 4th, 5th, 6th place, the likes of ASOS, Boohoo, Zalando also score highly, really illustrating that the typical route to global expansion is now digitally led. And these fast-growing, primarily digital players can deliver to multiple international markets basically within just a few years of launch. And moreover, their agile nature and clear focus means that they can leverage social media and new technology to reach audiences far and wide. However, physical still is very important, of course, and you can see there in 2nd and 3rd place, 2 well-established physical retailers in the form of IKEA and H&M. And these retailers scored high in our ranking, primarily because the majority of their group sales come from outside of Sweden, and they also have this combination of physical and online presence in around 50 markets globally each. Compared to last year's ranking, I just want to highlight one of the biggest jumpers this year, and that's Zalando, which has really raced up the ranking. Some reasons for this: well, Zalando has kick-started international expansion again after a few years of it being on hold, but it's also made great strides in terms of expanding into new categories such as men's beauty, as well as ramping up its capabilities in areas such as fulfillment, reach and speed. And Ian, I don't know whether you have any comments looking at this top 30.
Well, yeah, no, thanks, Robert. I think reiterating your sort of introduction to the top 30, Robert. I mean, it is quite striking. I mean, I mentioned kind of over the years of the World Retail Congress, when we started out, international expansion was all about brick and mortar and physical expansion into new markets. And what this research shows and this top 30 shows is how the digital world that we're now in is really opening up the realms of possibility for all sorts of retailers. I mean, certainly something we heard at this year's World Retail Congress is that in Europe alone, the consumer has access to something like 800,000 retailers and brands now, which just shows you the huge range of choice. And I think whilst some people might think that going international via e-commerce is suddenly easy because you don't have that the cost base of brick and mortar, I think that kind of scale of competition and the number of brands that you as a retailer are battling against shows that actually it isn't easy. And I think what strikes me about this top 30 is that mix of some really new, fast-growing retailers that have appeared. I mean, like look at Gymshark at number 12, which is certainly one of the world's fastest-growing sportswear brands online, and they've achieved that position through their understanding of what it takes to deliver excellence via e-commerce, and it's allowing it to expand internationally. And but full marks to some of those more established brands that Robert, you mentioned, like IKEA and H&M and Marks and Spencer, which is, we know, having a tough time in its markets, particularly the UK, but is still showing here as someone that is delivering a great sort of e-commerce performance. So I think for me, it reiterates the kind of the digital landscape, the opportunities it gives, but also reminds us, I think, of how to deliver that. You know, you really do need to focus on those key areas of excellence.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And if we move on to the next slide, just to have a look at in a bit more detail about Amazon. So as you saw, Amazon once again has claimed the top spot. And how did it do this? Well, it really scored the highest in terms of their combination of a growing global scale, as well as being a clear digital leader. So in terms of scale, Amazon had global sales of over $200 billion in 2018, which has allowed it to grow to become the world's third largest retail operator. But some 120 billion of that was generated outside of its US domestic market. And while it may only have an online presence in about 20 markets globally, it does have the ability to offer delivery across over 200 markets globally, meaning it has a huge reach, of course. But aside from just that scale and reach, we all know Amazon, of course, has been one of the most innovative and advanced retailers in terms of its fulfillment capabilities. So in many markets now, it's offering market-leading next day, same day, or even sub 60-minute delivery through Prime Now and Prime. And of course, it's also a leader in terms of some of those new technologies. So through voice, through the ownership of the Alexa platform, checkoutless stores, so of course with the Amazon Go technology, and also fulfillment through the likes of smart home and also automated vehicles such as drones. Just one point though, of course, that even though it scored highly, I think the past year has also proved that Amazon is not invincible. So earlier on in 2019, we saw Amazon close down its retail operations in China due to fierce competition from local rivals. And I think this is a great example, even amongst those, the largest and most sort of well-respected retailers, that the ongoing importance of really understanding the needs of the local markets and continuing to reinvent its offer to local consumers.
Fantastic, thank you. Sorry. Robert, are you able to talk to us around, sorry, Matt Furneaux, are you able to talk to us around the importance of Amazon here and what we've seen from best practices and learnings from Amazon?
Yeah, and I think, Ian, you'll probably chime in afterwards, but I think it's interesting with Amazon. They are such a sort of a Death Star in the industry, in the sense that they are just enormous and can innovate at scale and at pace in a way that few other retailers can hope to emulate. There is something of a Formula One analogy. They're able to do things in a way which may seem out of reach to other retailers initially, but sometimes that innovation and some of those new ways of doing things can filter down through even to some of the smaller disruptive players that we see on the index. But I think as we look at some of the surprises of the index, obviously this isn't just the stack ranking of the size of global retailers, some of the smaller organizations, and we'll see as we go through some of the reasons why this is, have been able to get themselves onto the index and show that they really are doing things that others can learn from when it comes to their internationalization. But technology is an absolute feature, just as it is with Amazon. Everything around Amazon is technology, and I think we see that with some of the more sort of disruptive members of the index, that they are really clever in using technology so that they can either sort of punch above their weight, they can gain access to new markets more quickly, perhaps with less investment than might have been necessary traditionally. But it shows something of a democratization in internationalization. You don't have to be the absolute 100-pound gorilla. You can be a younger, more nimble startup, and particularly when you invest and rely upon technology. Ian, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no surprise that Amazon is number one, but really reiterating what you're saying, it is the one to beat, but also there's lots to learn from Amazon as I see it. I mean, what you've got to admire is well, their relentless pursuit of investing in the next technologies. We actually just saw their latest results just about 10 days ago, and I think that disappointed Wall Street in the profit number had gone backwards, but that was all because of further investment in things like Amazon Prime and faster, better delivery. But I think there's lessons for all retailers there about, yeah, of course, focusing on the technology and the end service, and whilst retailers don't have the benefit of the scale of investment that Amazon could put into it, I think for me it's everything you read that Jeff Bezos says, and the philosophy he has and the culture in the business. It's about focusing on the customer. I mean, he's been quite clear that Amazon will fail if it stops thinking about what will make a better, seamless, frictionless experience for Amazon customers, and I think that is a lesson for every retailer of every scale. And I think in this world that we're now in, where customers have so much choice, it is down to those elements of service that you can provide and how relevant you can be to your customers that are going to ensure that you can win. So I think yeah, absolutely the retailer to beat, but equally there's so much to learn from and try and find points of difference to build your business.
Fantastic, thank you very much for that, Ian. So what we're going to do is start to look at some of the key strategies that the top 30 within the retail index have used, and take a bit more of a deep dive into what we've uncovered that is parallel between each of them, and the similarities that is causing them to have success. So Robert, are you able to take us through the quick, easy and convenient matrix here?
Yeah, sure. So we scored those 30 retailers across a range of different metrics, which really were focused on how quick and easy and also convenient was it for shoppers internationally to access the online sites and also that brand offer. So we looked at a variety of different things, such as how easy is it to localize the language or localize the currency on the website? Did the retailer as well, aside from just having one core global site for which international shoppers came to, did they also have some type of localized offer as well? So in terms of localized websites, and I think some of the more advanced did tend to have localized websites, which allowed them to really offer a more personalized and tailored range to shoppers in individual markets as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And so on here we have 3 points that we want to look into. So Matthew, can you talk to us about how keeping it local is important to specifically retailers who have done well in this?
Absolutely, and Ian rightly pointed out that Amazon's success is not just down to technology, but that absolute customer obsession. So organizations that are obsessed with their customer will be acting in a way that makes it easy and convenient and quick for customers to transact. One of the ways in which as customers we make very quick judgments on whether a site is somewhere we want to stay and do business is how applicable it looks for us in our circumstances, how familiar it looks. We've probably all had the experience when we're asked to type in our address, and there's maybe a series of address fields that are tailored towards a particular country that just happens to be not the country where we live. That was perhaps more of a case in the past, but you still find examples of that, and it's desperately frustrating. And in some cases, you can't even complete the most basic of details. So recognizing the individual, what are the things that they will expect to see, and what will make that transaction more familiar for them? I think when we see examples of where that happens, then an online experience will perhaps start to feel more familiar to an in-store experience. And perhaps if they walked into a store in their country, they would be received in a way which would feel local and familiar. We want to try and replicate that and make that online experience again feel familiar and an experience that the customer wants to continue to walk through. So simple things you can do: make the payments easy, make the address capture easy, simple things, let the customer really concentrate on the reason why they're there.
Thank you, Matthew. And so when we, Robert or Ian, actually, just before we move on, are there any other points that you want to add on to this?
I suppose just in terms of the transactional apps, so you can see there that the majority of the top 30 already offer transactional apps. But one of the things that we recognized was that the more you can localize that offer through apps, it's absolutely critical, because as we know, in many markets around the world, including emerging markets, accessing the internet and online commerce through smartphones is now the primary way of accessing those sites. So 40% of the global population now has access to a smartphone. So, really utilizing apps is going to be absolutely critical internationally going forward.
I think I just on that, I guess the third point around bricks and clicks, which I think is really important that the report emphasizes. I mean, we're not saying that the future of international is all about digital. It's certainly being a powerful new enabler for more brands to expand. But I think we're also seeing a reconfiguring of retail around the different channels. And interestingly, as we've all seen, Amazon, the ultimate sort of pure play retail marketplace and platform, is also expanding into physical space with Amazon Fresh and Amazon Go, and we know of other pure play operators that are using pop-ups or having physical stores. But equally, those that have always had that legacy of physical space and bricks and clicks are re-examining that whole mix of the digital channels and technology and how it relates back to their stores, and how you create a different kind of store that's either more of a flagship or just more of an exciting customer experience led store that uses technology in a really exciting way. So I think we're on the brink of a really exciting new development here too, in terms of international expansion.
Great, thank you, Ian. Okay, so on the second point that we're going to come on to, we are looking at how retailers are making this as friction-free as possible. One of the things that we look at is how to ensure that the best checkout is ultimately not a checkout. So to expedite customers through the checkout process and to ensure that there is as little friction as possible. So Ian, can you kick us off by talking about the design for the user and how this is important, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the digital experience is and has moved so fast. I think this point about sort of customer centricity and thinking through the customer experience, it's what we're seeing increasingly are a number of many online retailers now thinking about that final points of purchase for the customer, and how that the words that we keep hearing about frictionless and seamless and convenience are so important. And the customer just wants to be able to easily purchase what the goods that they're looking for. And I think we're seeing real step changes here in this area. So I think that's going to be a continuing area of focus.
And on that second point of international address verification, little surprised that there's overlap between the concept of keeping it local, creating a localized experience with some of these aspects of reducing friction. Some address structures, there are more than 130 different address structures worldwide. So trying to incorporate all of that logic into your platform on your own would be a very complicated task. However, customers expect to see things in a format which is familiar to them. So capturing an address quickly, one, it creates a great customer experience, and two, as the retailer, you've now got great quality data. So the chances of you then delivering against the customer's transaction, their expectations is significantly higher than it otherwise would have been. So a really critical step for international expansion.
And just on that final point there about digital payment solutions, so digital and alternative payment methods are becoming increasingly important to enable international shoppers to check out easily, especially, for example, if they're from markets where there's a high proportion of the population which is unbanked. And a great example of this is in Latin America. So some 70% of the population is or underbanked in that region in terms of their access to established banking systems, but 65% of the population uses a smartphone. So there's a huge discrepancy here. So offering them the means to pay digitally is a huge opportunity here, and effectively essential if you're looking to tap into that fast-growing region.
Great, thank you. So the third item here is in and around express delivery and the absolute importance of express delivery. So what we've seen here is that 75% of consumers, this is surveyed through the US, are expecting to see free shipping. So free shipping is starting to really ramp up within the market, and quite often you will see products sort of listed on popular auction sites, where you will have an option for with free shipping, and it will be slightly more expensive, and you have the cheaper option with shipping added, which ultimately comes to the same cost. Interestingly, when you look at the consumers who purchase this, the number of consumers that will go for free shipping, mainly because of applying filters when they're on the auction site, so they can actually only look at free shipping options. And this is similar again with Prime. People only look at Prime options when they're looking at the delivery and the speed of delivery when they're looking for items to be sent to them. Secondly, is in and around next day. So 62.5% of online orders are delivered to consumers were sent through next day, specifically for next day delivery, which is a high percentage, especially when you then consider and you take a small section of that and look at the EU, with 11% of retailers offering same-day delivery within Germany. There is a huge opportunity there to take a captive audience within the EU, within the German territory, for them to be able to take sales from a large proportion of consumers who are looking for that next-day delivery. So, Robert, can you talk to us around the importance of express delivery on this, please?
Yeah, no, I think this is one of the key findings that came out of the ranking this year, this growing importance of speed and the convenience of fulfillment, and really influenced by the rollout of sub 1 hour or same day delivery services by the likes of Amazon, and of course with consumers' lives becoming increasingly busy, they're looking for this greater and greater convenience, and shoppers increasingly want what they want, how they want it, and when they want it. So they're really increasingly in control. And as consumer expectations in terms of waiting time decreases, the leading retailers are already investing in ramping up their delivery speed, even for international orders. So out of the 30 retailers in the study, 3/4 offered some type of express 1 to 2 day delivery, typically in their home e-commerce market, but only 5 out of that 30 provided that type of speed of service across borders. And that was the likes of, as you can see down the bottom, Amazon, ASOS, but also some of those smaller retailers, the likes of Boohoo, Gymshark, and Paul Valentine's, are really reinforcing this point that, you know, if you have the capabilities right, you can gain an advantage over some of those more established retailers. And I think the overall key point here is that you can no longer expect international shoppers to wait. The speed of delivery is becoming a really crucial differentiator, and customers are increasingly demanding this same or next day delivery for domestic orders. And in the future, they're going to expect this as well for international orders. They're unlikely to wait 1 or 2 weeks for cross-border orders. So it's going to become an increasing battleground of the future.
I'll just jump in to reiterate that. I mean, all the conversations we have with retailers around the world, this whole area of speed of delivery is absolutely critical, and it really is, as the headline says there, the next big battleground for retail to establish that competitive edge. And this is really where we're seeing automation, artificial intelligence, robotics coming in terms of the warehousing and the shipping of orders to really streamline and speed up the delivery, but also the accuracy and the ability to respond to customers' orders. And yeah, I think this is a really important area for the next stage in the development of international e-commerce.
Great, thank you there, Ian.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so what I want to look into here is the future of retail, and what we see is the voice-enabled technology is really rising in importance. I think there's a big shift in the market from owning a smart speaker, which is now turning into a personal assistant. How can a smart speaker go beyond telling you what the weather's doing, and how can it then assist you in your online shopping process and purchases of items, as well as many other things? So specifically, when we look at voice technology at the moment, we've had 1 billion devices have been shipped in 2019 so far to date, with Google Assistant pre-built into those devices. So it is radically on the rise, and it is something that savvy retailers are adopting just to make it another accessible point so that someone can come in and make a purchase. Also, what we're seeing on the market is the rise of voice assisted. So it's not completely end-to-end delivered by voice, but it's voice assisted searching. So when someone's searching for a product or a device on using their Google or their Amazon smart speaker, the journey then continues through a tangible digital device. So it could be your mobile phone. So say, for example, you ask Google what is the release date of the new iPhone. You can then continue the journey through the Google Home app, and you can then find out what the release date is, and you can be taken straight through to the page in order to make and complete that purchase. So it's finding what those other touch points are that the consumers would be using, and ensuring that retailers are making themselves as accessible as possible to as many consumers as possible. So voice is predicted to grow. We're expecting $40 billion plus by 2022, which is up from the current position of $2 billion today. And that market figure is across the US and the UK.
So we can go a little bit deeper into voice as we look out into the future. And this year's index showed that just under half of the 30 on the index were using voice in some shape or form as part of their customer experience. So what do we expect to see looking out? Well, as Chris just went through, some of the numbers are pretty staggering. The accessibility to voice-enabled products or voice-enabled devices, whether it's smartphones, wearables, or tablets or other things, is becoming ubiquitous to the online market. What we have seen in previous technology shifts, whether that's to personal computing, to mobile, and now on into voice, you tend to have a number of stages, and we're seeing that emerge in voice technology in the e-commerce retail space. Firstly, retailers are starting to think about gamification. When a new technology emerges, as consumers, we typically want to play with an idea first to gain some comfort and a bit of experience. And we've seen a number of retailers, ASOS being one of those, who have introduced sort of fun ways of using voice as part of a simple transaction. The maturing of that process will lead to simple voice command exchanges. That could simply be giving your address, or it could be reordering an item that had been ordered previously. Technology will likely then develop so that we start to see the early stages of conversational commerce. So when voice technology is coupled with enhancing AI, just as a sidebar, Amazon say they have about 40,000 people globally working on AI alone, which is quite intimidating. But when we see AI coupled with voice technology, conversational commerce becomes a reality, not just for the largest retailers, but even for the small, more insurgent organizations. And then full conversational exchanges where you're discussing a purchase just as you would do with an assistant in a store if you're having a face-to-face exchange. So it was interesting that Robert brought voice into the index for this year. I think we're confident when we look at 12 months from now that many more of those 14 will firstly be using voice in some shape or form, but we'll also be starting to go down that maturity curve, moving from gamification right the way through to full conversational commerce. So allied to that is the impact of having poor quality data, whether the data that you capture at the point of transaction or data acquired from a customer at any other stage in the life cycle. Some previous research that Locate was privileged to sponsor was around how you fix failed deliveries, and particularly looking at the challenges that retailers find in that classic last mile. Now, in a home market, that some of those challenges can be resolved by perhaps individuals in the team just being able to recognize the problem, seeing the problem, and coming up with some solutions. As you grow your market into, grow your business into new markets, whether that's Eastern Europe, Asia, we talked about China a little bit, in other places where perhaps addressing systems are unfamiliar, then you need to really reflect heavily on some of the implications of getting it wrong. We already see that 1 in 20 orders go missing and aren't delivered in the first attempt, and about 20% of those that's caused by bad data. So we've reflected upon it already in the webinar today. Fixing that problem is relatively straightforward and shouldn't be overlooked, particularly by organisations that are desirous of going global. 2/3 of retailers admit that when they've got it wrong when it comes to delivery expectations, that's resulted in loss of revenue. Whether that's customers not coming back, a damaged brand reputation, or simply inefficient logistical operations. Good quality location data captured at the earliest opportunity really is a quick win for retailers, particularly as they expand outside of their home market. And almost 80% of consumers expect retailers to resolve a problem with delivery instantly and at their cost, and to accept fault. So we can see what the consumer thinks. These challenges can be a challenge in our home markets as we go global, even more so. The 30 on the list this year, we can see evidence that the majority of those are really thinking hard about the need to get good quality data in at the earliest opportunity and to really deliver against customers' expectations.
Thank you, Matthew. So as we draw the webinar to a close, one of the things that we want to look into is just to give you a quick summary and a takeaway. So it's important that in order to give the best experience to a customer, there's 4 key things that we have found are the learnings from the retail index. Part of this is due to the reconfiguration of retail, so keeping it local and personal, giving the best digital experience both online and offline. Just because a consumer is purchasing online doesn't necessarily mean that they should have a lacking experience or be limited in the choices that they have. And when they do shop in other countries, they should still receive the same experience regardless of their location. When we look into creating a friction-free and online experience, the rise of UX and the focus on being customer-centric and customer-obsessed is driving the importance of ensuring that there is a frictionless process to the checkout experience. The more friction that you can remove, or the more products that you can and tools that you can use in order to expedite a customer through the checkout process, is obviously going to then lead into higher conversions. And this is then applied globally across all markets that the retailer serves. Thirdly, then we look at the delivery and optimizing delivery, ensuring that there's a single-day delivery option, or at least a delivery option to have a product delivered within a 2-day window. This is really key in order to find that a customer engages, because customers look for beyond the product. It's not just the product that they want to get delivered to their door, it's the service that they get along the way and on the journey that allows them to be able to have the ability to then make that purchase. And then lastly is the investment in innovation, ensuring that retailers are doing the next thing, the next new way that consumers are engaging with retailers, investing in voice, investing in new forms of commerce, adapting the tools that are available and on the market to give the best customer experience, be that online through voice or digitally, or whether that's in store as well. So the experience stems a lot further. So one of the questions that we've given to each of the panelists here is to ask them what would be the things that they would recommend listeners to do. So Matthew, I'm going to kick off first of all, passing that question over to you. What would be your key takeaway for retailers to take on board from this?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it really simple, Chris, and just reflect back on two of the points we made earlier, and that's think about the ways in which you can make that experience familiar and local to customers. It doesn't mean that you have to wait a long time to move into new markets. Some of the disruptors, the Gymshark, some of the smaller organizations on the index have really just gone for it. And they've done that by being digitally native, by using social media, by creating a local presence, make your brand and make the experience feel familiar, even if you really are finding your feet. And we talked about some of the ways you can do that through address data, through payment options. Do that first, get customers feeling comfortable with your brand.
Fantastic, thank you, Matthew. And Robert, same question to you.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it would be really, I suppose my recommendation would be treating international as an opportunity, and really recognizing that, some of your biggest competitors of the future may actually not have a physical presence in your market. So, in 5 or 10 years' time, you might be competing against brands from all around the world, even small ones that potentially do not exist anymore. So really, in that mindset, you really need to recognize that international is an opportunity for yourselves, and really for a range of different retailers, regardless of size or category, reaching a global audience, learning about different markets and different rivals is now more essential than ever.
Fantastic. And Ian, do you have anything to add on to that at all?
Yeah, well, both Matthew and Robert have summed it up really well, but for me, I think if I could summarize, I think what we've seen with the digital world that we're now living in many senses, it's shrinking the world. So a brand sitting anywhere in the world can be accessed and sell to consumers literally anywhere in the world. So I think for me, at the heart of everything is this point I've made a few times already, is about being truly focused on the customer, on who your customer is, well, wherever they are. But what I think that really means is, what is it your customers are looking for from you? What do they think your brand represents? But really, what sort of service do they expect from you? And everything that Matthew and Robert have touched on there flows from that, in terms of they want it to feel localized for them and personal. They want it to be an easy shopping experience. They want to trust your brand in terms of if you order from it, the payment process, the financial side of it, but then through to the delivery, wherever you want that package to be delivered to, whether it's to a friend or family or to yourself. And when you say that it's going to be delivered, I think, and that, of course, all of that is fueled by, well, this obsession about the customer, but the technology and understanding what it is that's going to help deliver that and drive that as a business. So that for me would be the key takeaway that really is going to drive greater success for retailers working and delivering internationally.
Brilliant, thank you. So conscious of time, and we want to make sure that everyone's able to get away on time, but we have a few questions that have come in on the Q&A that we're going to kick out to the panelists. So the first question actually I think is really well suited to you, Ian. So have you seen any new criteria for what we see coming down the line for next year's index, what that could look like?
Yeah, I think we've touched on this really important battleground of the delivery times and the speed of delivery. And well, as we've again touched on in this discussion, I think the complexity around that, but the consumer is ever unforgiving, and what they want and what they expect are very different from how easy or hard that is for a retailer to deliver. But this is without doubt going to be something that's business is going to really focus on. We're seeing that with the investments in technology that's going to enable that around automation and AI in particular. So I think that for me is what we're going to see is a real focus over this, say, coming 12 months in terms of when we revisit this research.
And can I just add on to that, Ian, that one of the things I think we might see quite a lot of development over the next year or two is delivery to a range of non-conventional locations, such as inside the consumer's home or even inside a consumer's car. So we've seen some examples of this from the likes of Amazon and also Waitrose in the UK as well, with actually delivering into customers' fridges. So I think going forward, there's going to be lots of additional complexity in terms of where do you want that product delivered, and all the different sort of variations that come with those different varieties of addresses.
Fantastic, thank you. And Robert, just one more question actually, because I think we're running short on time. There have been a few questions, so we will hopefully be able to get back and answer those to the people who asked them. So who didn't you expect to see? Who was the surprise within the index?
Well, I would highlight some of those smaller retailers, so the likes of Paul Valentine and Gymshark, which might not be familiar to many of us, but they're still relatively small in terms of scale. But what's interesting is that, as you saw, a lot of those digital capabilities in terms of fulfillment speed, they actually score pretty high. And I think, in terms of their actual DNA, they've come into the market thinking, how can we gain scale globally? I think they recognise, the world is changing. Consumers from all around the world now want to engage with them. They've made it as easy as possible, and I think this is a completely different approach from some of the more sort of established retailers who, of course, spent decades and decades of building these physical stores globally. So, I think that for me was a surprise that even some of those smaller retailers can actually, they've got pretty advanced capabilities that many of the larger retailers, are only just getting to grips with.
Fantastic, thank you, Robert. And I just want to round up by saying thank you very much to everyone who's joined us on this webinar today. We hope you found it insightful, and please do send us your feedback. If there are things that you would like to see in the future, or you would like us to cover, please don't hesitate to reach out to us or get in contact, and we'll be more than happy to have that discussion with you. In the meantime, thank you very much. We really do appreciate you joining. Thank you.